Welcome to Stirring Strength, Perspectives on Mental Health and Addiction. On today's show, we have a special guest who has a really big heart and an even bigger job. We have Chantelle McDonald on the show from London Cares. Hi.
Thanks for having me, Dean.
My pleasure to have you. I'm excited to have a conversation with you about the work you do and the things that you've been doing in the community with London Cares.
Me too. I love the opportunity to speak to community and engage, so really happy to be here.
Yeah, of course, there's lots of controversy around this in politics and homelessness. So just so the viewers at home know what London Cares is, we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll talk a little bit about what it is you're doing and who you're servicing. So why don't you tell, as I told you earlier, my mom's the only one that watches the show. So why don't you tell my mom what London Cares is and what it does for the city?
Absolutely. So London Cares is a housing first organization. We have a number of different programs. So our street outreach team is probably the team that most people are familiar with. We operate 24 hours a day, kind of feet on the street, engaging and meeting people where they're at. So we predominantly work with individuals living in deep poverty that are street level in our community. From our outreach team, we're really trying to build a bridge from street to home. So some of our work on outreach is rooted in crisis response. Some of it is navigating the housing pathways. Some of it's resources such as referrals to shelter, mental health supports, justice supports, substance use supports, etc. While we're working with individuals, we're also allowing individuals to have self-determination in what they choose would be best for their journey. We have a Commons program, and that's at 602 Queens Avenue. The Commons program is an interesting drop-in center. So it's a partnership between London Cares, Regional HIV/AIDS Connection, Sisters of St. Joseph's, and then the Thames Valley Health team is within that scope as well. So folks come into the space. The space is open, welcoming, people can rest, they can do housing paperwork. We can navigate the system with them. And then around the outside of the Commons is actually what's called flex spaces. So different agencies come in. It might be probation, OW, ODSP. It might be hairdressers or veterinarians. And then on the other side of that space is procedure rooms. So medical teams come in, dentists come in to provide care there. And then we have two housing programs. We have a Housing First program that we do scattered plot housing around the community for about 100 individuals. And we have a veterans program tied to that, where we house veterans experiencing homelessness in London. And then our newest program is also a partnership. So it's a partnership with London Health Science Centre and a number of other great community partners that provide care to individuals living there. So it's a highly supportive housing program, working with individuals that need and require additional support. So has 24-hour support and care, and then wraparound care for individuals living there. So that program is really utilized to stabilize individuals that might be street level for a decade, 15 years, that need to gain some life skills, need to be connected to services, and need that 24-hour support. Some people graduate from that program, and some people will always need that level of support within their care. So that's a new program. It's very exciting, and we're seeing people really stabilize within that program and shift from survival to recovery, whatever that looks like for them.
Fantastic. That's a lot of things.
It's a lot.
A lot of moving parts. So in the essence, in the heart of it, it is supporting the people that are unhoused or dealing with addiction and or mental health at the street level within the city, wherever you can meet them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then it sounds like you're being also a conduit to other services and other levels of care to help people find transitions.
Yeah, we can't do this work alone, Dean. Absolutely not. We really need community partners' support. So sometimes we are just the linkage to supports, but we work with individuals that have been on the street and have removed themselves from the system. So some of our job, it might look like we're just sitting on a curb with someone, you know, giving them a water, but really we're building connection. It might take us meeting someone 20 times for them to feel comfortable giving us their full name. So that work can be slow, but we have to remember these people have had harm done to them from the system that we have in Canada. So really trying to build that bridge back to other systems as well.
Okay. So these are some of the big questions that I think that are not answered. As you see the person and you say that they're disconnected from the system, right? What is it that leads a person? I know that you mentioned the idea of that maybe there's a trauma from the system itself, but I'm sure there's a plethora of other things. And I think that there's an idea that it's a specific type of person or one type of person that ends up in that type of situation, but there's not, right? What would cause somebody to get disconnected from the system? What are some of the examples?
Yeah, some examples we see are intergenerational trauma. That's a big one within Canada. So we work with, someone's mom who was part of the 60s scoop. And then we work with that mom's children, right? It's intergenerational trauma, and that disconnects you from the system. How can you trust a system that has caused you such great harm? We have folks that have had trauma based on, their own family system. We've had folks that really just have fell on hard times. That's the difference of when I started doing this work to now, is that people can't afford rent. People can't afford groceries. We have folks that are working every day and will phone our main line to say, I can't pay my rent. I'm going to be experiencing homelessness. Can you help me? And that's some of that proactive work. If someone loses their housing and they've been there for 5 years, finding them housing that is affordable isn't an option, because the housing prices have risen, right? Our grocery prices have risen. People can't afford to live. So there's many people in many different situations that we meet on a daily basis.
Right. Trauma being a big part of it, a big part of that. Even finding yourself working and not being able to afford to pay the bills and being evicted, that's a traumatic experience in itself.
Absolutely.
So regardless, anybody in the street has had something that is traumatic. Just even the process of being there in itself, it could be traumatic. So there's a lot of things that need to be worked through with individuals in the street. Because you hear often people saying, well, why don't you just get a job or just get a house, or just like those just get this. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. Another one that I hear often is, well, isn't there shelters? What are some of the concerns, and why would there still be people, participating in street level survival when they could just go to a shelter?
Yeah, when we're talking about folks, why don't you just get a job? We're seeing a big increase of individuals on the street that actually require the support of developmental services.
Okay.
So we're seeing an increase of folks that might have a cognitive disability and actually might not be able to obtain a job. We're also seeing an aging population on the street where someone would be in their 70s, 80s, and wouldn't have the ability to work at this time. When we're talking about the shelter system, there's a number of different factors that come into play for an individual. One factor is that our shelters are mostly full every single night. We don't have the indoor capacity for the amount of individuals in London experiencing homelessness. So it's just not an option. For some individuals, there's barriers. So we don't have a lot of shelter space that allows couples to stay together. And then we have individuals living on our street that have one companion, and that companion might be an animal. And a lot of our shelters don't allow pets within the space as well. And then we have folks that are unable to access shelter. It might be due to their own mental health concerns and living in an area with so many people and sharing space. And then it might be that they aren't able to access shelter because they're restricted from that service due to behavior. So it's really important that we look at individuals and try and meet them where they're at and offer some low barrier resources for people that might not fit in that box.
Yeah, there's so many variables in all of that. There's also, and I'll be careful, I'll look over my shoulder. There's also times that I've noticed, and all of those things are viable for reasons why people wouldn't necessarily be in shelter. And the same with all the barriers to finding work. It's not just easy as just getting a job. And then you said earlier, it's also not that easy to just find a place to live, looking at the cost of living. And if you don't have an active address, how do you apply for an apartment?
Exactly.
Right? So there's all these barriers to get to that place. One of the things that I found very interesting years ago when I participated in working in shelters was there was a much larger barrier to the idea of putting 100 people into one building. And there was many people that were like, because of my mental health and trauma, I feel safer sleeping in an alley, or I don't want to sleep in a building with 100 other unhoused people. I don't want to sleep, and this feels dangerous or it feels unsafe. So often it's like, I feel safer sleeping in a tent somewhere, not because I want to bother you, because it's easier for me. Or the same thing, they have a dog, they're a couple, these other things that just doesn't fit into that space.
Yeah, we see folks even changing their sleep schedule. And that's because if I'm a female sleeping alone, or really any gender, it might be safer for me to sleep during the day when there's more people out in community, and there's daylight and there's street lights. If I'm sleeping at night, I could be more vulnerable to situations that may arise.
And that's why we have these conversations. I learn something new every day. I never thought about that because, it would be safer to, and you see people sleeping in the daytime on the street and you're like, why are you sleeping here? Is there something wrong? And, I always slow down to see if they're breathing or not overdosed or whatever. But the thing is, you see it.
You do.
And that makes perfect sense, because it would make more sense for me to stay awake at night to protect myself, or to see things coming, and sleep during the day when I'm probably safer to sleep in open space than anywhere else.
It's an important reason why House of Hope and highly supportive housing programs are important. We see people transitioning, to private market, and those four walls and loneliness, that's a concern why people might leave their housing, because they are used to people being around them at all times. And it's very, very lonely. So House of Hope, when we see folks come in from the street, there's a long process of even just getting your sleep schedule back on track. We see people not sleeping because they're in survival mode, or people, wanting to have some sort of companion. Staff can really help stabilize within those moments, because there is risks associated with wanting companion too. There's unit takeovers that happen where people are vulnerable to other individuals that might have reasons to take over a home. So supporting individuals through that kind of 2 years of housing when they're first getting housed is crucial.
The things we don't think about. House of Hope.
Yeah.
What is that?
House of Hope is our highly supportive housing program at London Cares.
Okay.
So it is a program where, we look at individuals that have been street level kind of the longest in our community, that have really complex needs that require that wraparound support. So some individuals in that program, I can tell you, have, before moving in, really high kind of hospital stays or emergency department visits. So one individual had 221 emergency department visits the year before he moved in 1 year. The second year it was 9. This year it's 1. So actually being proactive with the supports that we provide causes less stress on those institutions that everyone in community relies on.
Yeah. Even those, I don't think the average person knows, but those emergency room visits are quite expensive.
They are.
They add up to a lot of tax dollars in that, right? So if you look at 221 visits, that adds up to having housing paid for, or support services in the back end, versus them, living out of an emergency room.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even include any transportation or EMS or any other, frontline intervention from police or anything like that too, right?
Absolutely.
That adds up.
Yeah, giving people dignity and care in the end really does save the system financial strain, right? And it allows for our systems to work better. you go to the ED, and you wait a long time sometimes. If we're proactively working with people and giving them the care that they need, we can alleviate some of those pressures.
Mm-hmm. So House of Hope is doing some of that in transitional things. You mentioned something earlier about people, losing their housing to somebody else. They're put into a place and then someone kind of comes in and invades it, or other people having squatters in their space. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I could see that. Like, I mean, if I was in my own home and I just invited people over and I didn't have boundaries or mental health, that would be pretty easy for someone to just come and sit on my couch and never leave again, right?
Exactly.
But I have those boundaries, and I have a wireless doorbell. I got all the things, right? But that's not always the case. So housing isn't just as easy as just like, here's 4 walls and a door. There's all these intricate things that come into play.
Exactly. And I think that for a population that has experienced homelessness for years, there is a heartbreak for them when they get housed, knowing that they're leaving people outdoors to survive. They want to try and support other people. And if housing is what they have, they might try to support them because they feel bad for having housing.
Wow. Yeah, I guess it would be kind of like a survivor's guilt.
Exactly.
Maybe I have a house and you don't, so I'm going to try and support you. And in the process of doing that, they end up, kind of hurting themselves more. You see it often, even on social media. You'll see where somebody walks up and says, hey, do you got a couple of dollars? And they'll ask somebody, who's somewhat affluent, and they're like, go away. And they walk up to somebody who's unhoused sitting on the street, you got a couple of dollars, and they'll reach in and give them whatever they got, because they understand what it means to go without. So if they have it, they'll give it. And often the biggest hearts come from that space. So I could see where that would be a barrier for them to find meaningful housing, or even to have healthy boundaries with people, because they know what it's like to not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of the work that we do around stabilizing, right? Is helping people make those boundaries, having guest plans, because it might be the first time in their life that they've had their own space.
Sure.
So it's important work.
Yeah. And then even just having your own space must just in itself is scary. I know I've gone from being like married with kids and then having my own apartment as a single person. I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like, this is hard. I couldn't imagine what it's like going the other way. Are there any other barriers that you can think of that people would see in the transition of going into, from living in unhoused into having housing?
Yeah, I think one of the things, right, when we're looking at how much people make, right, ODSP and OW, if someone's on those benefits, ranges from about $400 a month to $585 a month for their shelter portion. To obtain housing, our average 1-bedroom is about $1,200 to $1,300.
Everybody pause the show and go and look at housing, 1-bedroom apartment, London, Ontario, and you'll see that $300 to $500 is not even close. You can't even rent a room for that price.
No, rooms are about $700.
Just a room.
Just
a bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some like rooming housing situation, again, it's unsafe for individuals. And it doesn't allow for the same care to be brought into their homes. So other barriers we see are, learning life skills again. I need to learn how to cook. I need to learn how to clean. I need to learn how to take care of something again. So we often see some people even just getting a plant. Like, I have a plant, I'm keeping this alive, and it's mine. So watching people do that shift as they stabilize is really beautiful. The work that's done at London Cares is so heartbreaking and so fulfilling at the same time.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned people being in survival mode earlier and trying to move them into recovery. I can see they did a study years ago where they took some farmers down in the US and they did IQ tests. Not that it's about intelligence, but just the idea of doing an IQ test. And they did it with these farmers every year. And a year when the crops were good and money was good, their IQ was 20 points higher than when the crops were bad and they were worried about money and worried about things. Their IQ was lower. Yeah. So, and not that we're talking a comparison of it, but just say the being in crisis and being in survival mode has there's been science to show that it actually reduces our capacity to make choices and to process information and to learn skills because we're too busy trying to just survive. Like I don't learn arithmetic if I'm getting chased by a bear. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm too busy just trying to not to try and, so then these skills need to be reintegrated and learned because they've just been busy surviving.
Yeah, and it starts with our outreach team, really. We need to do a sort of engagement on outreach. What that means is, Dean missed his appointment somewhere. Maybe it was a medical appointment. And, some people would be like, oh, Dean missed his appointment. We're charging him for it, or we're not allowing him another appointment until X, Y, Z. Outreach, our goal is really to say, Dean missed his appointment because he doesn't have a watch and he doesn't know what time or day it is, and he's living in survival mode. We can support with that, right? We can come out and we can say, Dean, you have this appointment today. We got to get you there. It's really important, because you're not really thinking about what time or day it is. You're thinking about, I haven't ate in 3 days. When am I going to eat it again? It was an ice storm last night. My tent is ruined. You're not thinking about how you can progress further sometimes when you're stuck in the here and now.
Sure. There is a need for a sense of hope that's engaged in future planning.
Yeah.
And when I'm hopeless or stuck in a space where it doesn't feel like there's a future, I'm not worried about what's happening in 6 hours from now. I don't have that.
Exactly.
Because I just need to go take care of it. Does London Cares get to advocate or speak on behalf? Do you get to participate with calling some of the service providers and say, hey, by the way, we're working with Dean and Dean's going to be there later, or can we reschedule? Is that something that you get to do?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Our teams are great at advocating. We have an incredible team at London Cares. Some of our folks with a mix of education and lived experience, some with lived experience, some with education, and they really know how to meet people where they're at and rely on community partners. So our job at London Cares is also to have that connection with community partners where we can do that. Because if we're working in a silo, that's harmful to the people that we're serving.
Yeah. As time goes, as we're going by really quick, I could talk with you for a long time about this. The city sees it differently. We know that, not the city, I won't say city because I'm not talking about City of London, I'm talking about some of the residents and the way that people engage on media and the way that they talk about the concerns with addiction and the unhoused population in the city. There's a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
What do you think is if you could bust a myth? If you could bust a myth, if there's something out there that you think that the community thinks, that you could get some clarity on, what is it? What would you say?
I think that our community is in a tough position, right? Business owners, residents are in a tough position because we don't have the service to support all the individuals experiencing homelessness on our street. And we know that causes some concern at times with different neighborhoods, etc. One myth that I hear a lot is these folks don't want housing. They don't want shelter. They don't want support. Individuals sleeping rough in our community, that's what they want to do. So when we started House of Hope evaluation, it was one of our data point. So we would have one building and one unit in that building where individuals were offered that one opportunity. 99% of people said, yes, I want to take that opportunity without having any choice. And they were individuals that were all from community that was sleeping rough. So that shows you right there, these folks do want the opportunity, and they deserve dignity and care. So we do hear that, and it's something that sits with me, that maybe they weren't given the right opportunity at the right time, or maybe they needed someone to support them along the way. I don't believe that there are a large number of individuals in our community that want to be outside in the weather that we're having today.
Okay, I believe you.
Yeah.
One last question. There is a lot of myth and misnomer, and my passion is substance use and addiction and where I work. about the idea that it's deviance and it's drug use, and that the unhoused population and the concerns that we have at street level is all about drug use. Throw some dirt at that with me.
Yeah, I think that at London Cares, we hear daily of people wanting to obtain treatment, wanting to attain recovery, right? And we know recovery is not linear. And we also know that there's not enough spaces in treatment beds. Even if we had access to every treatment bed in southwestern Ontario, we would not be able to support the people that need that. And we have individuals that never touched substances until they needed to survive the street. So it wasn't something that caused their experience of homelessness. And we work with individuals that do not use substances. And there's different journeys for different folks. Sometimes with the help of supportive housing, someone can recover. And then sometimes people need something different. They might need a medical detox with a treatment center, or they might need specialized care. So everyone has a different journey, and we're there to guide them on their path.
That's amazing. What I hear is there's a lot of people that end up using substances as a way of self-medicating once they're already now unhoused, because it's not about them having a drug problem and ending up in a house. Some of them do have drug and alcohol concerns and end up in a space where they can't afford their housing anymore. But there's a bunch of other issues that contribute to that. I don't think the community understands that you can get treatment beds, but then if you don't have a place to go after, you kind of see it again as, why would I go get treatment if I'm just going to end up back on the street again and having to use and be back where I was? So if there's nowhere for me to go, why would I go get treatment?
Exactly.
And then also barriers to finding that treatment, right?
Yeah.
So it's just not what we think it is. And a lot of people think they choose to, and then they're there because it's all drug use, and but sometimes it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, there's one quick story I'll tell you, Dean, about an individual, a younger Indigenous male who we were working with, and he had been living street level for a long time. We finally got him housing, and he stabilized and said, I want to go to treatment. And in order to go to that treatment, his OW would have had to go to the treatment as well, which means he would have lost his apartment in order to go to treatment, and then been back on London streets after that time. So people are navigating difficult realities when trying to make choices.
Yeah, and you can't have both. It's one or the other. So then you have to leverage it, and it's really a shame.
Yeah.
We wish that it was easier than that, but it's not. So I want to thank you for being on the show today, Chantelle, and sharing all these insights and information. And hopefully we've educated some people in understanding what it is London Cares does and some of the struggles that you deal with. And hopefully some of the people will have a little bit kinder and more compassion when they see people in the streets out in the cold.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been an honor.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for watching Stirring Strength, and we'll see you next time.